Hi, I'm Dr. Deb, and I would first of all like to say how pleased I am to be speaking here at the OU. This is the most wonderful organization, helping the community in so many ways. I'd especially like to thank Frank Bookleitz, the Director of Community Outreach, and his very well-organized staff, especially Hannah Farkas. My talk today is how to have happiness in a challenging marriage. I know what you're thinking. Dr. Deb, you got the title of this thing wrong. Happiness is getting out of a challenging marriage. If that's how you think, you're not alone. Lots of people can't wait to get out of their miserable marriages. Yet, oddly enough, they must be looking for something because they marry again and they divorce again. 50% of first marriages, 67% of second marriages, and 74% of third marriages end in divorce. What's going wrong? Why is this happening? Here's some examples that I've encountered. In my office, one couple tells me, "We argue every day." And that's correct. When I ask for an example of what they're arguing over, they get into another heated discussion right there in front of me. I have to ask them to stop. What they're doing isn't helpful. They look surprised. They don't know any other way of handling their difficulties. Another woman sadly tells me that her husband doesn't listen to her. She's bubbling over with joy about some event that happened that day, and her husband barely glances in her direction. Suddenly her bubble is burst and she's left dragging her chin on the ground. A husband whispers to me that he caught his wife texting some guy she knew from before their marriage. He's having trouble holding back tears. They all try. They want to make things better. They want to be happy. But the pain is enormous, and when nothing gets better, they just can't go on. So they divorce. Later, as time goes by, they feel they're ready to get married again, although the statistics are not favorable. What are they looking for? Better yet, why would they be looking when they already learned that marriage is bad? You know the answer. They don't believe marriage is bad, it's just this marriage that's bad. And now that they've learned their lesson, they think they just need to be married to a different person. Yeah. Maybe they're trying to learn the wrong lesson. Maybe the lesson that's harder to learn, the lesson that would definitely put them in control of their lives, is how to be truly happy with whoever it is they're married to. You think I'm nuts, right? Dr. Deb, you want to say, how can you be happy with the wrong person? It reminds me of an incident in my own life that took place 20 years ago when I was doing my doctoral internship in a counseling service that I had created in a shul. One day the rabbi walked in as I was about to leave, and he greeted me with, "Hi, how are you?" but for reasons I can't remember now, that was a bad day for me. And I responded to him with a list of some top complaints that he probably didn't want to hear anyway. Instead, he responded, smiling, why be unhappy? Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Serve God with joy. At first, his remark was really annoying. Yeah, that's theoretically right, except the whole problem is I didn't feel very simchadik that day. I would love to be simchadik, but my situation wasn't conducive to it. It seemed like he was making light of my problems. And then it dawned on me. That aha moment slowly lit up my brain. And I understood. Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha is not telling you, wait until you're in a good mood to serve God. And it's not telling you that when you daven and learn, that's when you should be b'simcha. After all, we're supposed to be serving God all the time. I realized that Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha is something you should do anytime, regardless of, or perhaps because of, your circumstances. That is, specifically because your circumstances are crummy, you're supposed to search for the simcha in your life. You know, that really makes a lot of sense. When we're feeling down, Hashem comes to us with love and compassion, saying, find the good in this situation so that you won't feel so down. Find a way to be simchadik within the context of your circumstances. This may be the biggest life lesson I ever had. My mood picked up that day, and I walked out of there with a smile. Over the years since then, I discovered that there are two ways to accomplish this dictum of Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, serve God with joy. One is to refocus. Don't make all the issues in your life that are bothering you the focus of your life. Point your head in another direction. Smell the flowers. I often ask people if they say moda'ani in the morning when people are sad and they come to me for help. And I say, when you're saying moda'ani, take an extra few minutes. Spend some time listing all the goodness in your life. I do it too. My very good friend was repairing a roof. She's an athletic person, but she fell off of it. She broke her spine, and now her wheelchair is her feet. Because of her, I never fail to feel the joy of walking and to thank God for legs that work. There is so much goodness that can truly bring a smile to our lips. For me, I just have to think of my grandchildren and it changes the color of the day. What is it for you? What in your life has the power to bring out your good mood? Is it your health? Your children? Your home? Your hearing? Your sight? Your cooking? Your crafts? Do you appreciate all that? Feel the goodness. Take a moment right now to feel the blessing of a body that works most of the time, and a mind that works most of the time, the blessing of the people you love in your life, including friends or strangers who have been kind. Let's take a look at Amy. See how all this would affect her. Amy wakes up in the morning, her alarm clock nudges her out of sleep, but she's resisting. The last thing she wants to do is see John's face, his awful face, with a scowl. He's always scowling at her, and she just can't take it anymore. She did everything in her power that morning to avoid him. All the days, too, but it doesn't always help. That day, she got dressed quickly, peeked around the bedroom door, didn't see him, and hurried over to the bathroom. If she worked quickly, she might get out of the house before having to encounter his scowl. Let's revisit Amy. Some weeks later, she's heard a talk at the OU like this one, and she's decided to be happy, no matter what. So now she wakes up, and instead of feeling like she wants to avoid John, she decides she wants to embrace the new day. Her eyes are still closed. She recites Moda Ani and thinks of her shoulder. That really shouldn't feel good, but it does, because she had taken a fall a month ago, and miraculously it's repaired itself. It's pretty good. She thinks of her beautiful children, and a tear of appreciation comes to her eyes. She thinks of the praise she just got at work, and it wasn't the first time that her writing was complimented. She's thrilled. She thinks of the warm reception that her literary circle online gave her for her newest project. She's touched to have so many good friends. She opens her eyes as she hears the rain patting against the lawn, and it opens up wonderful green smells, and she inhales deeply. She feels glad to be alive. Inadvertently, a smile comes to her face, which she didn't know is that John had been there in the room. He sees the smile, and he remarks, "First smile I've seen in a long time." Amy answers him truthfully, "I decided to count my blessings. I have many of them." John is not scowling at this moment. He listens to her with interest. Let's cut that scene for a moment, because you remember I said there are two ways to do Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Let's look at the second way. It's not good enough to just refocus on the good. It's important. It's wonderful. But I'm going to throw out there the following challenge. Perhaps the husband or wife that is your biggest headache can be your biggest joy. What is good about this person? More. What is good about the problems that you're having with this person. That doesn't make sense to you, I know. On a superficial level, there can't be anything good about problems. But if you dig deeper, you will find that very often we learn something remarkable and important about ourselves from our problems. See, there's something about herself that Amy hadn't learned yet. Something that if she did learn it would make her a better, happier person. There's that word happy. Yeah, she would actually be happier. Maybe that needs explaining. When a person goes through life with a blind spot and somehow the veil is lifted from their eyes, it may be painful to recognize that they'd been living all their life and hadn't been seeing clearly all those years. But the truth is that for some reason, they are also happier to have learned something. It's almost as if having this additional knowledge, this additional vision, makes them stronger, more on top of life. Something like that, I don't know, but it works. Let's revisit Amy and John now. John is intrigued by Amy's response. Remember, she had said that she was counting her blessings. So he ventures the following question to her. Amy, am I one of your blessings? He's caught her off guard. She doesn't want that scowl to come back. And she doesn't want to lie. She's frozen, not wanting to say yes and not wanting to say no. Her basic honesty wins. She tells him, up to now, you've had a scowl on your face. You look at me and it doesn't make you happy. I'm your wife, but nothing makes you happy. It was making me so miserable, I can't tell you. I would avoid seeing you just to not encounter your scowl. The scowl was not a blessing. No. But you're not your scowl. I don't know you anymore, so I can't even answer your question. That was pretty brave of Amy. Maybe recognizing the goodness in her life gave her the strength to tell that to her husband. And it opened up an incredible conversation for her and John. Amy was shocked to learn that in John's mind, she was the cause of the scowl. Here's what he told her. Amy, do you remember that day I came home really down from work and I told you about the guys I had to fire? You didn't seem interested in the conversation. You got busy with things. You dropped me like a lead balloon. Amy, I couldn't talk to you since that day. Amy's eyes grew wide. She remembered that conversation very well. She always thought of her husband as a tough, in control guy. She had no idea that his having to fire people? Was cutting him up inside? No idea. Was she insensitive? Amy was flabbergasted at the thought that she might have been the insensitive one, that she was the one that might have brought that scowl to her husband's face. Wow. She digested his words and she gave them a lot of thought. So now, especially when he's speaking, she looks at him more, much more. And every time she looks at him, she remembers this big lesson that she learned about herself. And she thanks God for the pain that she experienced in making this discovery, because she didn't, under any circumstances, want to be an insensitive person. And she makes a point these days of asking John about work and looking into his eyes when he talks to her and answers that question. She has apologized for her initial insensitivity. And she asked him to please be sure to tell her if it ever happens again. Amy and John could have drifted apart. She could have left the marriage believing that her husband was cold, when it was she who needed to learn a lesson. A lesson that his scowl taught her. But she's married to John. Remember, there's a John here. Let's not put all this on Amy. Could John maybe have spoken up sooner? He didn't speak up at all. Could he maybe have spoken up? Yes. John had the exact same lesson to learn. He didn't even realize that his scowl was chasing her away. Originally, he scowled because of her coldness in his eyes, but it was he who made her appear even colder because of the scowl. John might have been ready to have an affair had he believed that to be wrong, not the right thing to do. He had no idea that he came across as tough and in control. He didn't feel that way inside. That was his lesson. So there is happiness to be obtained from a challenging marriage. Whether it's learning to see and recognize all the goodness in your life, or it's learning something important about yourself that you need to work on. How about this? I will wager you that every bad marriage has a lesson for both parties to learn. A lesson that's valuable and wonderful. A lesson that, when learned, converts misery into happiness. I'm Dr. Deb, speaking at the OU, and barely glances in her direction. Suddenly her bubble is burst and she's left dragging her chin on the ground. A husband whispers to me that he caught his wife texting some guy she knew from before their marriage. He's having trouble holding back tears. They all try. They want to make things better. They want to be Hi, I'm Dr. Deb, and I would first of all like to say how pleased I am to be speaking here at the OU. This is the most wonderful organization, helping the community in so many ways. I'd especially like to thank Frank Buchleitz, the Director of Community Outreach, and his very well-organized staff, especially Hannah, as they marry again and they divorce again. 50% of first marriages, 67% of second marriages, and 74% of third marriages end in divorce. What's going wrong? Why is this happening? Here's some examples that I've encountered. In my office, one couple tells me, "We argue every day." And that's correct. When I ask for an example of what they're arguing over, they get into another heated discussion right there in front of me. I have to ask them to stop. What they're doing isn't helpful. They look surprised. They don't know any other way of handling their difficulties. Another woman sadly tells me that her husband doesn't listen to her. She's bubbling over with joy about some event that happened that day, and her husband Farkas. My talk today is how to have happiness in a challenging marriage. I know what you're thinking. Dr. Deb, you got the title of this thing wrong. Happiness is getting out of a challenging marriage. If that's how you think, you're not alone. Lots of people can't wait to get out of their miserable marriages. Yet oddly enough, they must be looking for something, because